for any modern organization, I think, well, sustainability is no longer just a corporate social responsibility project you can kind of delegate to a single department.
No, not at all.
It is a non-negotiable fundamental expectation, and frankly, it's a huge driver of modern brand loyalty. If you want brand equity, that intrinsic value consumers place on your name, you have to be able to prove your commitment, not just promise it.
That's the key word right there, prove.
It is. So we are diving deep today into a strategic blueprint for how companies can genuinely integrate this massive commitment into their fundamental brand architecture.
Yeah.
This dive takes us past the glossy annual reports and squarely into the operational, technological, and architectural reality of being a genuinely green business. Okay, let's unpack this. Our source material lays out a really cohesive path for achieving what they term sustainability-centric brand equity. And this isn't about just launching one initiative. It demands a strategic convergence. We're looking at three major themes that have to work in lockstep, informing and enabling each other. First, we have to master customer preference, knowing what green means to that individual customer.
Not to a segment, but to a person.
To a person.
Yeah.
Second, you have to be capable of delivering personalized sustainability experiences based on those preferences. And third, all of this requires excelling in what's called the sustainability customer value chain, which is really the operational delivery side of things.
That holistic view is absolutely crucial, and it highlights, I think, a critical shift in the relationship between a brand and its audience. True brand equity today sits at this really powerful but also challenging intersection of three domains.
Okay.
You've got what the individual consumer needs and values, what the world needs, and by that I mean the adoption of measurable, sustainable behaviors, and then what the brand can uniquely and, again, verifiably offer.
So it's a three-way street.
It's a three-way street, and if a brand misses any one of those 3 points, if they offer something the world needs but the customer doesn't care about, or if they promise something they can't operationally deliver, their efforts are just going to ring hollow.
Right. It falls flat.
It completely falls flat. This is precisely why we have to stress that this whole framework goes so far beyond a simple marketing or public relations exercise. True, measurable success depends entirely on the delivery of the brand rather than the brand promise.
So walk the talk.
You have to. If you make a green claim, your supply chain, your logistics, your data systems, your customer service, they have to be integrated and prepared to back that claim up 100% in real time.
Wow.
So our mission for you, the listener, is to analyze precisely how the technical infrastructure, the overall corporate strategy, and the daily operations must align across an organization. We're going to drill down into the necessary complexity required to prove a brand's sustainability commitment to the customer at every single digital and human touchpoint.
And that, at the end of the day, is the difference between greenwashing and genuinely building brand equity.
That's the strategic difference, absolutely.
All right, so let's start by defining the scope. Because as you mentioned, sustainability can be so broad and vague that, a company just saying we're sustainable is, well, it's meaningless.
It's just noise. Yeah.
It's just noise. So for our purposes, the customer-centric definition focuses on specific, measurable aspects that directly influence purchasing decisions and drive loyalty. This is sort of the checklist the informed customer is consciously or, subconsciously running through.
Exactly. They're not looking for vague assurances anymore. They are looking for specific proof points.
Okay, so our sources detail 9 specific areas customers are highly conscious about, and it's probably worth going through them because they range from the C-suite all the way down to the return label on a package.
A huge range.
It is. First, there's the organization's broader environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, performance. This is really about the organization's character.
Yeah.
Are they governed ethically? Is their workforce treated fairly?
And that establishes the baseline level of trust, right?
Yeah.
Without a good ESG rating, the customer probably won't even look at the product. But once that's established, the focus immediately narrows.
It does. Which brings us to number 2. Are the specific products they are considering buying actually eco-friendly? This moves from the corporate policy to the item that's, right there in their hand.
Or in their online shopping cart.
Exactly. Third, customers want to see systematic waste reduction efforts within the organization itself. They want evidence that the company is serious about eliminating unnecessary waste, not just, recycling the easy stuff.
Yeah.
And fourth, closely tied to that, Is there a clear organizational focus on material reuse? Are they genuinely embracing circularity rather than that old linear take, make, dispose model?
And this is where we start seeing the social part of the ESG score really manifest on a local level, which is often a big differentiator. Number 5 specifically asks whether the organization invests in uplifting the quality of local infrastructure where they operate.
Ah, so giving back to the community.
Right. Are they giving back to the communities that support their operations? This ties their long-term success directly to local well-being, moving them beyond just being a jobs provider.
And number 6, which is just vital for supply chain transparency and, frankly, often a huge liability.
Oh, absolutely.
Are the brand's raw materials sourced via responsible vendors? This speaks to deep labor practices, ethical sourcing of minerals or crops, and environmental impact way, way deep in the supply chain, far away from headquarters.
And you can't hide that anymore.
You can't. 7th, the customer increasingly wants quantification. They want to know the quantifiable carbon footprint reduction of the products they're buying. They want a number, a percentage, not just a nice slogan about going green. They want to compare product A to product B based on hard data.
And finally, we look at the external reach and the end-of-life process. So number 8 asks, do they work closely with external organizations like NGOs or environmental trusts? And do they invest actual capital in sustainability projects outside their core business?
So are they part of the broader solution?
Exactly, beyond their own product line.
And then number 9, which is often the most operationally challenging.
Yeah.
How truly green is the returns and recycling process connected to the products?
Yeah.
Is sending back a used electronic item part of a genuinely circular, carbon-optimized system? Or is it just another logistical headache that ends up in a landfill?
What's fascinating here is that this 9-point checklist fundamentally moves the goalposts. It starts with simple product ingredients, and then it just explodes outward to encompass governance, social impact, infrastructure investment, and even the efficiency of reverse logistics.
Reverse logistics being returns and recycling.
Exactly. For any organization, achieving alignment on all 9 of those points at the same time requires radical real-time transparency across the whole enterprise. And that is a heavy demand, but it's one consumers today are increasingly willing to reward.
That seems overwhelming, covering everything from the CEO's governance policies to the label on a returns package.
It is overwhelming if you approach it piecemeal, and that's why the framework is so necessary. When you look at those 9 customer concerns, you realize the organization needs a structured way to manage them. So the strategic blueprint synthesizes these massive demands into 3 resulting action questions. These become the roadmap.
Okay.
The first question we have to answer is, how do we move beyond broad segments and understand the individual customer's specific, nuanced sustainability desires? The second, how do we consistently provide a personalized, sustainable experience across all our touch points, digital and human? And finally, the third, and the most difficult, how do we ensure an end-to-end, verifiable, sustainable experience across the entire value chain?
From the raw material all the way to the product's end of life.
The whole journey.
Those 3 questions are the perfect structure for this deep dive.
Sure.
It leads us directly into our 3 strategic themes. So let's start with that foundation, understanding what the customer actually cares about. Okay, so theme 1 is mastering customer preference understanding. The foundational step is listening, but we're talking about listening with, like, a surgical intent, specifically tracking sustainability signals across all touch points.
Right.
And crucially, this involves dealing with a duality of information, what the sources call implicit versus explicit preferences.
Yeah, and understanding this duality is just paramount for accuracy because what a customer says they want in a survey, that's their explicit preference, might be aspirational.
What they want to be.
Exactly, what they do. Their implicit preference, that reveals what they truly prioritize through their actions. That's the behavioral truth.
Okay, so let's break that down. Explicit preferences are the direct self-reported feedback. This is data you gather from standalone surveys, maybe embedded surveys, asking customers to rate the brand on specific sustainability criteria.
Or prioritizing initiatives.
Right. Would you rather reinvest in material reuse research or in community infrastructure? They're telling you directly, and they're often, consciously trying to present themselves as responsible consumers.
But the real goldmine for prediction lies in the implicit preferences. These are gathered from the digital traces the customer leaves everywhere they interact with your brand.
What kind of traces are we talking about?
Well, social media sentiments about your new packaging, clickstream data showing which pages they lingered on, like Did they spend 20 seconds on the ethical sourcing page, but only 5 seconds on a product's price page? Call center queries where sustainability might have been an underlying concern, and of course their transaction history, but filtered through a green lens.
So we're talking about collecting incredibly granular data signals here. Did they click on a marketing event about carbon neutrality? Did they actually subscribe to the specialized ethical sourcing newsletter? Did they opt into a carbon offsetting option during checkout, even if they didn't complete the purchase?
Yes. Every action, even a failed one, is a data point revealing their true level of engagement.
The essential insight here is that the customer is leaving traces of their intent and their passion for sustainability everywhere, across their entire life cycle.
And if the organization isn't set up with a connected digital listening platform to capture this complex mix of structured data, like surveys, and unstructured data, like sentiment and chat logs, they are completely missing the opportunity to personalize.
But hold on a minute. We are talking about collecting social media traces, detailed clickstream data, highly sensitive preference scores. I mean, doesn't collecting that complex mix of implicit data create a massive liability risk for the company? Are the potential personalization gains worth the legal and trust exposure if something goes wrong?
That is a critical challenge, and it's why infrastructure is either the bottleneck or the enabler. You cannot build a personalized sustainability experience on shaky compliance ground. The white paper is emphatic. You must treat customer privacy and context as non-negotiable architectural requirements, not an afterthought.
Okay.
The argument is that privacy must be handled like a coin with two sides, and both have to be tightly integrated into your technology stack. One side is customer identity and access management, or CIM. This establishes and manages the unique authoritative identity of the customer across all your systems.
So that's the who.
That's the who. The other side is customer consent, which manages the explicit permissions granted by that customer identity regarding how their data can be used.
So it's not enough to know who the customer is. You also have to know what they've allowed you to do with their information.
Precisely. And the key third element is context. The failure to integrate CIM and consent with context that leads to those trust-eroding experiences we've all had.
Right, like an upset customer calls the service center and minutes later gets an automated marketing promotion.
That's the classic example. But think about a more complex scenario. Imagine a customer, let's call her Sarah. She has explicitly opted out of marketing emails about the brand's green initiatives, but she's opted in to text message alerts about local recycling events.
Okay, specific preferences.
Very specific. She then goes to the brand's e-commerce site, browses a specific line of ethically sourced sweaters, adds one to her cart. Minutes later, she uses the brand's mobile app to report a problem with a recently delivered package.
Okay, so you've got multiple systems involved. E-commerce, mobile app, CRM, the consent manager.
Right. If the system isn't integrated, here's the failure. Because the e-commerce system knows she showed high interest in that sweater, the personalization engine operating without full context sends a last chance promotional email about that sweater line.
Violating her email consent preference.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the service agent handling her mobile app inquiry doesn't realize she's currently browsing an expensive, premium, ethically sourced item and tries to placate her with some generic, low-value discount code.
That's a triple failure. You violated consent, you've lacked the personalized context for the discount,
Right.
and you've probably damaged brand trust by just looking incoherent. The company effectively treated Sarah like 3 different people.
Yes. That failure shows a lack of a unified CIM across all channels and a marketing engine that lacked the contextual profile. It didn't know she was simultaneously in the complaining phase and the high-intent browsing phase.
Wow.
So if you're going to use implicit data to drive highly personalized engagement around sensitive topics like sustainability, you absolutely need CIM and consent tightly locked with your tech stack alongside a real-time context engine. This ensures you respect legal regulations and the customer's self-stated preferences and their current emotional state.
So omnichannel personalized engagement has to pass the privacy, context, and consent test simultaneously.
It has to. That's how you create a virtuous cycle of trust.
Okay, so that sets us up perfectly for theme 2, delivering personalized sustainability experiences. Once we have those deep, privacy-compliant insights into individual preferences, we know, for example, that Sarah prioritizes ethical sourcing and local recycling, but actively dislikes getting general green marketing emails. The next massive challenge is converting those insights into personalized, context-aware, real-time actions.
And this is where we move into the realm of data architecture, and it really demands a major fundamental data modeling shift. You touched on why traditional databases fail. They're static, they're built for transactional records, or designed for, once-a-day batch reporting.
Too slow.
Way too slow. The sources emphasize that customer engagement data is fundamentally different. It is always flowing, it's changing, reacting, and engaging in real-time experiences. If a brand's inventory suddenly changes, or if a supplier reports an ethical sourcing violation, that has to instantly impact the personalized content shown to the customer moments later. You can't capture that dynamic velocity in a rigid, traditional system.
So if the old system is too slow and rigid, what does the new flexible data model require? What are the key components of this architecture shift?
Well, the sources outline three key components for this new data schema, and ideally it's built on a modern cloud platform designed for that kind of velocity and scale. First, the golden profile.
The golden profile.
This is the core.
Yeah.
This single authoritative view of who the customer is, meticulously blending privacy standards and persistent customer identification. This is the foundation upon which trust is built. Second, the schema must be engineered to support extremely flexible segmentation, slicing, and dicing of data in all kinds of ways. It's not enough to segment by age and location anymore. You need to create microsegments based on complex preferences, like customers who have opted for carbon offsetting on high-value orders and click on material reuse pages but are currently located in a region without a convenient returns program.
That's incredibly specific.
The system has to support the fluid creation of these niche segments. And third, the schema needs to incorporate customer activities and attributes to calculate sophisticated indicators. And we aren't talking about simple counts here. We need dynamic metrics like a sustainability feedback score, a green product preference expectation index, or scores derived from real-time social media sentiment. These scores are the currency of the personalization engine.
And this all feeds back into that duality we talked about earlier, right?
Right.
The unified versus the contextual profile.
Yes, that distinction is vital for achieving real-time relevance. The unified profile is the master data view. It's the fixed identity. The unique customer ID, the merged data from every source, ERP systems, CRM records, long-term third-party demographic data. It answers the static question. Who is this person, generally, based on everything we know?
But the contextual profile is the experience-centric view. This is the profile that lives in the moment. It understands the customer's present environment or phase in their journey. So it answers the dynamic question.
Yeah.
What is this person doing right now, and what is their current state?
Exactly. Think about that ethical sourcing question, Sarah, our customer might ask a chatbot. The unified profile provides the chatbot with her core identity and her past preference history. She prefers ethically sourced items,
Okay.
but the contextual profile provides crucial real-time data. She is currently browsing product X, she's on a mobile device, she's geographically near a key manufacturing hub, and she initiated the conversation with a service tag signaling an inventory question.
So much more detail.
And that allows the AI to immediately tailor the answer. Yes, Product X meets our rigorous ethical sourcing standards, specifically because the cotton is sourced from region Y, which we recently audited. Would you like a link to the audit results, since we know that transparency is important to you? That kind of real-time, personalized, contextual delivery is only possible when both profiles are continuously feeding the engagement engine.
That continuous enrichment of both profiles is what allows machine learning to function. But that sounds like a massive investment. Is it truly necessary for a brand to build a full data science platform just to figure out if I care about waste reduction versus ethical sourcing?
I think it is, because deriving the meaning from this enormous volume of flowing data can't be done manually. Organizations need to blend their existing enterprise analytics platforms, the data warehouses, the BI tools, with a dedicated specialized data science platform.
And what's the purpose of that?
The purpose is to leverage machine learning and AI to make sense of the big data in real time. This isn't just for reporting, this is for creating and calculating those crucial dynamic customer scores and KPIs related specifically to sustainability preferences.
Like what kind of scores?
For instance, the system might calculate a likelihood to engage with re-commerce score or a carbon sensitivity index based on browsing behavior and past purchases. These predictive scores are the sophisticated triggers that automatically drive marketing execution and customer service protocols, which makes the whole process scalable.
So segmentation, which is often considered, the most basic marketing tool, gets turbocharged by this infrastructure.
Exactly. Segmentation, while it's conceptually old, achieves an unprecedented maturity level here. It must now be driven by an amalgamation of omni-channel data, transactional history, real-time behavioral patterns, demographic data, and those predictive scores we just discussed. It's about modeling complex segments fluidly and mapping them to specific moments in the customer journey.
And with all this complex data, how do you keep track of it all?
That's where a data catalog becomes absolutely indispensable, especially in the context of sustainability.
I think most people think of a data catalog as just a simple inventory list. Why is it a strategic necessity for this?
Because sustainability data is intrinsically complex and often auditable. The data catalog isn't just an inventory. It enriches every data asset with metadata details about its source, its quality score, its update frequency, its compliance status.
So it's like a resume for each piece of data.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the campaign manager. They need to create a segment for customers with a high carbon sensitivity index to push a new feature that verifies an order's carbon footprint. Without a data catalog, the manager has to chase down a data engineer to figure out if the carbon footprint data they want to use is verified, accurate, and sourced from the back-end ERP, or if it's just some generalized estimate.
And the catalog provides that assurance instantly.
Instantly. It makes complex, flowing customer experience data accessible and comprehensible to the business user, ensuring better data governance and, critically, ensuring that every personalization trigger related to sustainability is based on verifiable truth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Once the architecture, data models, analytics, and governance are in place, we get to personalized green engagement, which is where the brand promise either lives up to the hype or just falls completely flat. This is where the rubber hits the road.
That's the moment of truth.
It is. This means executing marketing to one, which is the ultimate goal of personalization. You're controlling customer journey flows and embedding real-time actions using dynamic automation, a combination of simple rules and sophisticated machine learning algorithms reacting to those preference scores.
And crucial to building brand equity is consistency. Personalization can't just exist in one channel. If the system knows I prefer plastic-free packaging, those triggers have to fire consistently across all customer experience applications.
So the e-commerce checkout page, the mobile app.
The call center dashboard displaying my preferences to the agent, even the internal sales interaction systems.
Right. So if the customer has a high preference score for ethical sourcing, your mobile app should prioritize filtering options by origin story. Your customer service agent should be briefed on those details. And your next email campaign has to reflect that preference with relevant, personalized content.
Exactly. That level of operational consistency where the back-end data system delivers a personalized, verifiable sustainability experience across the front office, that is what truly builds lasting, sustainability-centric brand equity. Which brings us seamlessly into theme 3, excelling in the sustainability customer value chain. We've talked about understanding the customer and personalizing the experience. Now we have to talk about the most difficult part, the scalable, efficient, and sustainable delivery of that promise.
This moves the conversation from the digital experience into the physical, logistical, and financial reality of the business.
Yeah.
It's about treating the operational delivery as a core part of the customer experience, proving the claim.
Exactly. The value fulfillment strategy requires massive cross-organizational integration to function. First, you need that seamless integration of your customer-facing applications, your front office, with the relevant back-end fulfillment systems. This means real-time connectivity between your e-commerce platform, your ERP, your supply chain management, and your logistics providers.
So if the supply chain has a delay because they shifted to a greener shipping route, the customer-facing system has to know about that instantly.
Instantly. Second, you have to master the complex orchestration of order management throughout its entire life cycle. This runs from the moment a customer expresses interest, through the purchase, processing, fulfillment, and then completing downstream processes like finance and service.
So the whole journey of the order.
The entire journey. A perfectly orchestrated system ensures that a sustainable promise made at the moment of sale is efficiently and traceably fulfilled.
And third, you need mandatory cross-division collaboration. E-commerce, key account sales, channel partners, the logistics team, they all have to move together with a singular focus on value fulfillment.
Yes, because if the sales team is out there making promises about rapid green delivery that the operations team can't support, you destroy brand equity right there.
Okay, let's look at some key functionalities that move sustainability from, an abstract commitment to a concrete, verifiable customer feature embedded in that value chain. The first is the massive undertaking of managing and communicating the carbon footprint in products.
This is critical because it satisfies the customer's demand for quantifiable data. That was point 7 of our 9 concerns. But for an organization to provide this data accurately, say displaying the cradle-to-gate carbon load on a product detail page, that requires immense internal rigor.
And it sounds incredibly difficult. I mean, how can a massive global company confidently calculate the carbon footprint for a product whose components might come from dozens of different suppliers all over the world? Isn't the uncertainty factor, especially with Scope 3 emissions, just too high to be presented as verifiable data to a customer?
That is the core friction point. And the organizational requirements are indeed vast. First, you need specialized data modeling to handle all the complex input variables. Second, you need rigorous, sustainability-centric data acquisition protocols, demanding highly granular, auditable data from every single supplier, often moving beyond generalized industry averages to actual measurements.
Right.
Third, you need dedicated emissions factors management to handle the constant fluctuations in regional energy grids and logistics methods. Fourth, a sophisticated calculation engine to integrate all this data. And finally, and crucially, integration with relevant enterprise solutions to make the data actionable and visible to the customer at the exact moment of decision.
So they can compare two delivery options based on their carbon load, for example.
Exactly. And the key is transparency about the calculation methodology, acknowledging where estimates are used to maintain that trust.
So once the product is sold and delivered, the customer experience hasn't ended. That brings us to the operational challenges of the product's end of life and the whole circular economy idea.
Yes. The second and third key functionalities focus on returns management and re-commerce, which tie directly into points 4 and 9 on the customer's checklist. For returns management, the goal is twofold: optimize the process and limit value leakage.
In the past, returns were just a cost center. Now, they have to be viewed as an opportunity to reinforce the sustainable brand promise.
They absolutely must. This means implementing intelligent, automated, guided returns that provide end-to-end visibility for the customer. Think about system-driven recommendations. If a customer is returning an item due to a fit issue, the system might not just offer a replacement size, but guide them to the nearest drop-off point that uses the most carbon-efficient logistics provider.
Or suggest a sustainable alternative product to limit the chance of another return.
Exactly. It's guided, intelligent service reinforced by sustainability data.
And then there's the logistical leviathan of re-commerce, truly enabling circularity through mechanisms like product trade-in or resale programs. This is where the supply chain integration gets extremely complex.
It's the most challenging operational component, for sure. Enabling re-commerce requires treating a used item as a completely new product stream. This means dedicated internal processes for managing re-commerce product data, which includes a different SexU structure and separate inventory tracking.
It's a whole new business within the business.
It is. It requires rigorous pricing evaluation that accounts for wear and tear, and a complex grading and authentication process to verify the condition and genuineness of the used item. This can't be done casually. The customer buying the secondhand item expects the same level of brand assurance as the first buyer.
So the back-end system has to manage separate inventory tracking for, say, grade A refurbished versus grade B used, and factor in where that inventory is stored. That is a significant commitment.
It's a total rethinking of the business model from linear to circular. It's a huge upfront cost, but it feeds back into the brand equity by satisfying the customer's desire for material reuse and giving the product a second life.
And finally, we have carbon-neutral orders. This is the customer-facing element that occurs right at the point of sale, designed to encourage checkout and boost loyalty.
Right.
This requires integrating those carbon calculation functionalities we just discussed and potentially rethinking business processes for the circular economy, often involving calculated offsetting mechanisms.
And the key is offering an educational and transparent option to the customer at the time of purchase, clearly showing them the impact of the order, what they're compensating for, and exactly where that offsetting capital is going. It must be transparent, not just a hidden add-on fee in the shipping costs.
Right. The customer needs to feel empowered by the choice, not coerced by guilt.
Precisely. So we have spent a lot of time discussing the necessary technology stacks, the complexity of data modeling, the intricate supply chain integrations. But as we know, none of this advanced MarTech or complex logistics can succeed if the organization is structurally siloed.
Right.
A sustainability-centric strategy cannot be enabled by silos. It requires formal, mandatory, and cross-functional organization.
It sounds like a formula for internal turf wars. I mean, if marketing is pushing for a quick campaign about a new green feature, but logistics hasn't finished the integration to verify the carbon data, who wins that fight? And how do you force collaboration on something as abstract as brand equity?
That tension is precisely why the organizational structure is a key component of the strategy. The source material suggests introducing the idea of a special matrix task force formed by 3 key offices, ensuring shared ownership and forcing shared accountability.
Okay, who's on this task force?
It has to be composed of the Chief Sustainability Officer, CSO, the Chief Information or Technology Officer, the CIO or CTO, and the Chief Marketing Officer, CMO.
That brings the 3 most difficult and often conflicting departments into one room. How do you manage the natural conflicts that arise when you mix a long-term systemic vision from the CSO with immediate revenue targets from the CMO and massive infrastructure cost control from the CIO?
By clearly defining the non-redundant yet necessary contribution of each role. The Chief Sustainability Officer provides the deep expertise on the substance of the initiative, the global rules and regulations, the financial implications of sustainable investments, and global best practices. The CSO sets the what and the why, the systemic mandate.
Okay.
Then you have the Chief Information or Technology Officer, who is the critical enabler. They focus entirely on the how, providing the relevant tools and technologies needed to automate, scale, and integrate those best practices into the operating systems of the business. The CIO ensures that the CSO's vision is technically feasible and scalable.
And the CMO's job is to represent the customer and the brand value, correct?
Exactly. The Chief Marketing Officer brings the crucial customer focus. Their job is to ensure that those sustainability best practices, now enabled by the CIO's technology, are made central, personalized, and communicated effectively to the customer experience to genuinely enhance brand equity and loyalty. The CMO translates the operational delivery into perceived, measurable customer value.
So the CMO might demand personalization based on carbon data, which forces the CIO to ensure the data catalog contains verified carbon footprint information, which in turn forces the CSO to implement new auditing standards for suppliers. It's a chain of accountability.
It is a closed-loop system of accountability, and it means that when conflicts inevitably arise, say, the CMO wants to launch a large, flashy campaign highlighting a new eco-friendly package, but the CSO argues that the logistics chain for that new package is still relying on fossil fuels for the first mile of delivery.
The task force has to jointly adjudicate that trade-off.
They have to. They can't let the CMO launch a promise that the CSO knows the operations can't deliver without falling into the greenwashing trap.
Right.
This raises an important question. It highlights how organizational design is inseparable from brand strategy in the age of the conscious consumer. If the 3 pillars we discussed, understanding, personalizing, and delivering verifiable, sustainable value, are not championed equally and jointly by these 3 C-suite leaders, the entire effort stalls.
And the brand equity you hope to build remains nothing more than a temporary high-cost promise.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and recap the core message, building sustainability-centric brand equity is fundamentally a marathon. It requires enormous coordinated technology investment and an even greater organizational commitment to break down silos.
It's a huge strategic effort.
It is an effort that translates complex internal processes like carbon accounting, supplier auditing, and re-commerce logistics into personalized, verifiable, external customer experiences.
Yeah.
The payoff, however, is exponential because you are building loyalty based on deeply shared values and verifiable proof, not just glossy advertising. The future of brand loyalty is tied directly to the verifiable delivery of sustainable value, not just the promise of it.
That's right.
Customers are now watching your supply chain, your waste management, and your returns process just as closely as they watch your advertisements.
And this framework shows that organizations are now successfully mining highly implicit data clickstream traces, newsletter subscriptions, social media sentiment to accurately predict a customer's specific green preferences. This is unprecedented predictive power, moving from simple segments to a highly accurate view of individual values.
It's a huge shift.
It is. So here is our final provocative thought for you to chew on. If organizations are now successfully predicting with high accuracy what sustainable choices a customer is likely to make, for example, Knowing they are 80% likely to adopt an ethical sourcing preference next year, how will this predictive power force brands to move beyond simply reacting to existing customer demand and start proactively investing in and educating customers about future, more ambitious, sustainable choices that haven't even become mainstream yet?
Hmm.
Will predictive analytics transform companies from demand followers into educators and pioneers, shaping the future of consumption based on what they know customers will value tomorrow?
A truly fascinating and, I have to say, a slightly unnerving possibility. Thank you for diving deep with us today. The next time you shop, look closely for that seamless integration, or the glaring lack thereof, in the brands you support. Does their operational delivery truly match their sustainable promise? We'll be back next time to unpack more of the information that matters most.